The drilling machine stopped working 3 days ago on planet Kepler 442b, and nobody knew why until worker Don Murphy found the strange metal wall deep underground. The wall was not like anything humans had seen before, and it glowed with soft blue light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Mining supervisor Kate Williams called Earth Command immediately because protocol demanded reporting any alien technology. Discoveries to the Galactic Council within 24 hours. Dr. Lisa Martinez arrived on the next transport ship along with Commander Jake Sullivan from Earth Defense Corps. Lisa had studied alien ruins for 15 years, and Jake brought military expertise in case the discovery posed any threats to human colonies. The mining camp buzzed with excitement as rumors spread about what lay beneath their feet. The metal wall turned out to be just the beginning because ground scanners revealed massive structures extending for miles in every direction. Lisa supervised the careful excavation while Jake coordinated security measures. Workers used precise laser cutters to create an entrance without damaging whatever lay inside. The metal was incredibly hard and resisted most cutting tools until they found the right frequency to weaken its molecular bonds. When they finally broke through the wall, Lisa gasped at what she saw inside. The chamber was enormous with ceilings that disappeared into darkness above their heads. Strange symbols covered every surface and holographic projectors flickered to life as soon as humans entered the space. The air inside was breathable but felt different somehow, as if it carried the weight of thousands of years. Jake set up perimeter security while Lisa began documenting the symbols and studying the holographic displays. The holograms showed images of tall reptilian beings with green scales and intelligent yellow eyes. These creatures appeared to be telling a story through their recordings, and Lisa worked frantically to understand their language patterns. The breakthrough came when Lisa realized the symbols were not just writing but also mathematical formulas and star charts. She fed the data into her translation computer and waited as the artificial intelligence processed the alien language. Hours passed before the computer began producing rough translations of the reptilian recordings. The story that emerged made Lisa feel cold despite the warm air in the chamber. The reptilian race called themselves the Vorthok, and they spoke of a time 3,000 years ago when their empire stretched across hundreds of star systems. They had been the dominant species in this part of the galaxy with technology far superior to current human capabilities, but something had ended their empire in just 3 years of brutal warfare. The Vorthok recordings spoke of a single human warrior who appeared from nowhere and began systematically destroying their fleets. They called him the Walker and described abilities that seemed impossible even by current galactic standards. Jake listened to the translations with growing amazement. As the Vorthok described battles where the Walker single-handedly defeated entire armadas. The recordings showed tactical genius beyond anything in military history books and physical capabilities that defied known laws of physics. The Walker could predict enemy movements with perfect accuracy and seemed to be everywhere at once during major battles. What frightened the Vorthok most was not just the Walker's military skills, but his absolute determination to protect humanity. The recordings described how he would appear whenever humans faced extinction-level threats and would not stop fighting until every enemy was defeated or surrendered. His reputation alone eventually caused entire Vorthok fleets to retreat rather than face him in battle. Lisa discovered that the Vorthok were not the only species with records of the Walker. The chamber contained data from dozens of other alien civilizations, all describing encounters with the same human figure throughout galactic history. Each species had different names for him, but the descriptions were always identical. The Zentari called him the Ghost Warrior, and their records showed him ending their expansion toward Earth colonies 800 years ago. The hegemony of Krell spoke of the human storm who shattered their invasion fleets in a single week. Even peaceful species like the Altarians had stories of the Walker appearing to negotiate treaties that always favored human interests. Jake found disturbing evidence that these various alien species had been coordinating their records for centuries. They shared information about the Walker's appearances and developed strategies to avoid triggering his intervention. Some species had actually changed their expansion routes to avoid human Space entirely. The most chilling discovery came in the deepest part of the chamber where Lisa found recent Vorthak recordings. These newer files suggested that the Walker was not dead but merely sleeping somewhere in the void between stars. The recordings warned future generations to never threaten humanity directly because the Walker would awaken to defend his species. As Lisa and Jake prepared their report for Earth Command, they realized the implications of their discovery. Humanity had unknowingly been protected for millennia by a legendary figure whose very existence kept hostile aliens at bay. The question now was whether the Walker was real or just a myth that had taken on its own power through centuries of alien fear. The mining operation was immediately classified and the site placed under military protection while Earth Command decided how to handle this information. Lisa continued studying the recordings while Jake coordinated with fleet commanders about potential security implications. Neither of them suspected that their discovery had already been detected by certain alien civilizations who monitored human archaeological activities. Deep in space, ancient sensors registered the activation of Vorthak technology and began sending signals across the galaxy. The time of sleeping was ending, and soon the Walker would be needed once again. Captain Alex Morrison had been salvaging derelict ships for 12 years, but he had never seen anything like the vessel drifting in the void near the Horsehead Nebula. His Zephyrian crew aboard the salvage ship Windcutter detected the strange craft 3 days ago, and Alex decided to investigate despite warnings from his engineer Pete Davis that the ship might be dangerous. The derelict was clearly of human design, but unlike any technology currently used by Earth fleets. Its hull was made from materials that seemed to absorb scanner beams, and its shape suggested incredible speed capabilities. Most disturbing was the fact that the ship showed no signs of battle damage yet appeared to have been drifting for thousands of years. Dalek suited up in his environmental gear and crossed to the mysterious vessel with his boarding team, including Security Chief Maria Santos and Tech Specialist Ryan Clark. They found an airlock that responded to their presence even though the ship appeared completely dead. The door opened with a soft hiss, revealing corridors lit by emergency lighting that should have failed centuries ago. The ship's interior was pristine, as if it had been maintained by invisible hands during its long drift through space. Ryan's scanner readings showed impossible energy signatures coming from the ship's core and life support systems that operated at 100% efficiency despite their apparent age. The technology was definitely human but advanced far beyond current capabilities. They followed the main corridor toward what appeared to be the bridge but stopped when they discovered a sealed chamber marked with symbols that hurt their eyes to look at directly. Alex felt compelled to open the chamber despite warnings from his team that they should return to their own ship and report the discovery to proper authorities. Inside the chamber, they found a single cryogenic pod surrounded by monitoring equipment that hummed with quiet power. The pod's viewing window revealed a human male who appeared to be in his 30s with dark hair and numerous battle scars across his visible skin. His vital signs showed perfect health despite readings that suggested he had been in suspension. For over 3,000 years, Ryan tried to access the pod's computer systems, but the moment he touched the control panel, everything changed. The ship's lights brightened to full power and artificial gravity activated throughout the vessel. Warning alarms began sounding as systems that had been dormant for millennia suddenly came online with startling efficiency. The cryogenic pod opened with a burst of cold vapor, and the man inside drew his first breath in centuries. His eyes opened slowly, revealing intelligence that seemed far older than his physical appearance suggested. He sat up carefully and looked at Alex and his team with complete calm, as if awakening to find aliens aboard his ship was perfectly normal. Alex stepped forward cautiously and introduced himself, but the man held up one hand for silence while he studied their faces. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but carried authority that made everyone unconsciously straighten their posture. He said his name was Walker and asked a single question that chilled them all. Walker wanted to know if humans were still free or if they had been conquered by alien species during his long sleep. Alex explained that humanity controlled several dozen star systems and maintained peaceful relations with most galactic civilizations. Walker's expression remained neutral, but something in his eyes suggested. This answer was not entirely satisfactory. The ship's computer systems responded to Walker's presence in ways that defied explanation. Displays activated showing star charts that were thousands of years old, yet somehow more accurate than current navigational data. Engineering readouts indicated the ship was now operating at impossible efficiency levels that exceeded theoretical maximums. Walker moved through his ship with familiarity, born of long experience, while Alex and his team followed in amazement. The vessel contained technologies that would revolutionize human space travel if they could be understood and reproduced. Weapon systems showed capabilities that could destroy entire fleets and defensive measures that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Maria asked Walker how long he had been sleeping and why he chose to awaken now. Walker explained that he did not choose when to awaken because the process was automatic and triggered by specific threats to human survival. He had been designed to sleep between crises and emerge only when his species faced extinction level dangers. The ship's database contained logs spanning millennia that documented Walker's interventions throughout galactic history. Each entry showed him appearing during humanity's darkest hours and achieving impossible victories against overwhelming odds. The records read like myth and legend, but the evidence was undeniable. Ryan discovered that Walker's biological readings showed impossible longevity and enhanced physical capabilities that current human science could not explain. His reflexes were 10 times faster than normal humans, and his strength readings were off the charts. Most disturbing was brain activity that suggested cognitive abilities far beyond normal parameters. Walker accessed his ship's communication systems and began monitoring current galactic transmissions. His expression grew increasingly concerned as he learned about recent alien activities and aggressive expansions toward human space. He seemed particularly interested in reports about the Corvan hegemony and their military buildup in border regions. Alex realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history as Walker prepared his ancient ship for whatever conflict was coming. The vessel's weapon systems came online with power signatures that dwarfed anything in current human arsenals. Walker moved with purpose that suggested he had done this many times before. The salvage captain tried to contact Earth Command about their discovery, but Walker politely asked him to wait. He explained that premature revelation of his existence could trigger panic among alien civilizations who had learned to fear his legend. The galaxy had remained relatively peaceful, partly because most species believed the Walker was just a myth. Walker's ship began moving toward human space with acceleration that should have been impossible for its apparent mass. Alex and his crew found themselves passengers on a vessel that operated according to principles they could not understand. The wind cutter was left behind as Walker explained that stealth was now essential. As they traveled, Walker shared fragments of his long history, and the crew began to understand they were in the presence of something beyond normal human evolution. He spoke of battles fought across the centuries and civilizations that had learned to avoid humanity rather than face his intervention. The journey toward Earth would take several days, and Walker used the time to study current galactic politics and military capabilities. He seemed particularly concerned about coordination between various alien species and patterns that suggested a larger threat was emerging. His ancient eyes held knowledge of wars that predated recorded history and wisdom earned through countless conflicts. Supreme Commander Vex Kravanis felt his blood turn cold when the intelligence report reached his flagship in the Outer Rim territories. His communications officer had intercepted transmissions about a human discovery on Kepler 442b and the awakening of someone called Walker. The name meant nothing to most species, but Corvan historical archives contained records that made Vex immediately order full military mobilization. The first Corvan Empire had ruled 12 star systems over 2,000 years ago until a single human warrior appeared and systematically destroyed their civilization in 18 months of brutal warfare. Ancient Corvan texts described this human as possessing abilities that defied rational explanation and tactical genius that reduced their greatest military minds to helpless confusion. Vex had studied those historical records since childhood because his family descended from survivors of that ancient conflict. The texts spoke of fleets vanishing without trace and space battles where human forces achieved impossible victories against overwhelming numerical superiority. Most disturbing were accounts of the human warrior appearing on multiple battlefields. Simultaneously, as if he could be in several places at once, the Supreme Commander activated emergency protocols and recalled all Corvan fleets from border operations. His military advisors, including General Krixvander and Admiral Zara, Korvik questioned the sudden mobilization, but Vex shared the historical files that explained his concern. The assembled officers studied ancient battle reports with growing alarm as they realized what their ancestors had faced. Corvan military doctrine had been shaped by those ancient defeats and included specific protocols for avoiding direct confrontation with human forces. Their expansion into the Outer Rim had been carefully planned to avoid triggering whatever mechanism brought the Walker back from his legendary slumber. Now, those precautions appeared to have failed. Vex ordered immediate attacks on 17 human colony worlds while Walker was presumably still traveling toward the core systems. The strategy was simple but desperate because Corvan tacticians hoped to eliminate enough human settlements to cripple their civilization before the Walker could organize effective resistance. Speed was essential because ancient records suggested his tactical abilities improved dramatically once he had time to assess enemy capabilities. On Earth, General Patricia Hayes received emergency reports about Corvan fleet movements and immediately convened the Defense Council. Admiral Kevin Cross brought tactical analyses while Dr. Nathan Price provided intelligence assessments about Corvan military capabilities. The assembled commanders struggled to understand why a relatively minor border dispute had suddenly escalated to full warfare. Commander Sarah Blake presented disturbing data about alien communication intercepts that mentioned something called the Walker. Various species seemed to be monitoring human activities with unusual interest, and several civilizations had begun moving their fleets away from human border regions. The pattern suggested widespread knowledge of something that Earth Command knew nothing about. Patricia ordered immediate defensive preparations while her staff tried to understand what had triggered such aggressive Corvan actions. The timing seemed connected to the archaeological discovery on Kepler 442b, but the classified nature of that project limited information sharing. Dr. Nathan Price requested access to those files but was told the discovery was above his security clearance. Meanwhile, Walker's ancient ship approached human space at impossible speeds that would have torn apart conventional vessels. Alex Morrison and his crew watched in amazement as Walker monitored galactic communications and tracked Corvan fleet movements with supernatural accuracy. The legendary warrior seemed to know exactly where enemy forces would strike before they had even finalized their attack plans. Walker's expression grew increasingly grim as he studied tactical displays showing Corvan preparations. He explained to Alex that this level of coordination suggested the hegemony had formed alliances with other aggressive species to create the largest anti-human coalition in galactic history. The ancient warrior had faced many threats over the millennia, but never something this organized and determined. The ship's database revealed communications intercepts from dozens of alien civilizations discussing the Walker's return. Species that had maintained careful neutrality for centuries were suddenly choosing sides as news spread through underground networks. Ancient treaties and non-aggression pacts meant nothing when faced with the possibility that humanity's legendary protector had returned. Walker began modifying his ship's systems in preparation for the coming conflict, and Alex watched technologies that belonged in fantasy novels rather than reality. Weapons that manipulated space-time itself came online, while defensive systems created fields that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The ancient vessel transformed from derelict curiosity into the most dangerous warship in known space. The first Corvan attack struck human colonies at dawn local time across 17 different star systems. Orbital defenses that should have held for weeks crumbled in hours under concentrated alien firepower. Distress signals flooded Earth Command, As colony after colony reported enemy landings and civilian casualties mounting by the thousands, Admiral Kevin Cross ordered immediate fleet deployment, but Earth's scattered naval forces could not possibly defend all threatened colonies simultaneously. The Corvan strategy was working perfectly as human military resources were stretched beyond breaking point. Evacuation efforts began on the most vulnerable worlds while defense fleets raced toward priority targets. General Patricia Hayes watched the tactical displays with growing desperation as red indicators marked human losses across the outer colonies. Conventional military wisdom suggested negotiating immediate surrender to prevent total annihilation, but something in the classified reports from Kepler 442b made her hesitate. Earth Command had discovered something important enough to change everything, but she needed more information. Walker's ship suddenly appeared in the Alpha Centauri system where Corvan forces were attacking the agricultural colony of New California. Alex Morrison gripped his restraints as impossible acceleration threw them into combat at speeds that should have killed everyone aboard. Walker moved through his bridge with calm efficiency while reality seemed to bend around his presence. The battle that followed redefined everything Alex thought he knew about space warfare. Walker's ancient vessel engaged 3 Corvan battleships and their escort fleets with tactics that bordered on supernatural. Enemy weapons simply missed their target, while return fire struck with impossible accuracy that crippled alien ships. In single shots, Corvan Admiral Lex Corvan, commanding the New California assault, watched his superior forces dissolve under attack from a single human ship that moved like it was piloted by the gods themselves. His tactical computers could not track the enemy vessel's movements and weapons that should have. Guaranteed victory had no effect whatsoever. Within 6 hours, the entire Corvan assault fleet was either destroyed or in full retreat, while human casualties were minimal. Colonial defense forces watched in amazement as their mysterious savior disappeared toward the next threatened system. News of the impossible victory spread through both human and alien communication networks within hours. Walker explained to Alex that this was only the beginning because the Corvan hegemony would not abandon their campaign after a single defeat. Ancient records showed that aggressive species often required multiple demonstrations of human capabilities before they understood the futility of their actions. The real war was just beginning, and Walker would need to remind the galaxy why they had learned to fear his legend. Walker arrived at Earth 3 days after the New California victory and requested permission to board the experimental warship Infinity, which had been under construction in lunar orbit. General Patricia Hayes personally authorized the transfer despite objections from her security staff, who worried about allowing an unknown individual access to humanity's most advanced vessel. The Infinity represented cutting-edge human technology, with quantum processors and experimental weapon systems that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Captain Rachel Torres had been selected to command the ship, but she found herself deferring to Walker's authority the moment he stepped aboard. His presence seemed to affect every system on the vessel in ways that engineering teams could not explain. Engineer Marcus Webb monitored ship diagnostics with growing amazement as the Infinity's performance improved dramatically whenever Walker was on the bridge. Power efficiency increased beyond theoretical maximums, while navigational systems achieved accuracy that should have been impossible. The ship responded to Walker's commands as if it had been specifically designed for him. Tactical Officer Amy Carter studied Walker's combat methods during their first engagement with Corvan forces near the mining colony of Titan 7. The ancient warrior seemed to predict enemy movements with supernatural accuracy and coordinated multiple battles simultaneously, as if he could see the entire conflict from outside normal space-time. The Corvan assault on Titan 7 involved 43 warships led by Admiral Zeth Corvanis, who had been specifically briefed about Walker's capabilities. Corvan High Command believed superior numbers and advanced tactics would overcome whatever advantages the legendary human possessed. They were preparing to learn how wrong that assumption was. Walker took command of the Infinity and its escort fleet with quiet authority that inspired immediate confidence among human crews. His tactical briefings were precise and comprehensive. while his battle plans seemed to account for every possible enemy action. Officers who had trained for decades found themselves learning new concepts about space warfare from someone who spoke as if he had invented the discipline. The battle began. When Corvan forces dropped out of hyperspace in attack, formation designed to overwhelm human defenses through concentrated firepower. Admiral Zeth expected quick victory against the small human fleet, but Walker had positioned his ships in patterns that turned Corvan numerical superiority into a disadvantage. Enemy vessels found themselves unable to bring their weapons to bear. While human forces struck from unexpected angles, Marcus Webb watched his engineering displays with disbelief as the Infinity performed the maneuvers that should have torn the ship apart under normal circumstances. Walker seemed to instinctively understand how to push every system beyond its design limits without causing catastrophic failures. The vessel moved through space with grace that defied physics and struck targets with weapons that hit far harder than their specifications suggested possible, Rachel Torres realized. She was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic military history as Walker coordinated the entire battle from the Infinity's bridge. His commands were delivered in calm tones that somehow reached every human ship simultaneously despite normal communication delays. Enemy formations crumbled under attacks that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Amy Carter documented tactical patterns that would revolutionize human military doctrine if anyone could understand how. Walker achieved such results. His strategies involved predicting enemy responses with perfect accuracy and positioning forces to exploit weaknesses that had not yet developed. The ancient warrior fought as if he could see multiple possible futures and chose actions that guaranteed victory. Admiral Zeth Corvanis found his carefully planned assault dissolving into chaos as human forces achieved impossible coordination while his own fleet fell into confusion. Weapons that should have destroyed human ships had no effect while return fire crippled Corvan vessels with single shots. The tactical situation deteriorated so rapidly that he ordered retreat after losing 2/3 of his fleet in 4 hours. News of the Titan VII victory spread through galactic communication networks within hours, and alien civilizations began remembering why their ancestors had learned to fear human space. Species that had been expanding aggressively toward human borders suddenly redirected their fleets toward less dangerous regions. Ancient warning beacons activated on worlds that had not seen conflict for centuries. The Altarian Federation recalled their exploration fleets from human border regions. After emergency sessions where Elder Council members shared historical records about the Ghost Warrior, their archives contained detailed accounts of Walker's intervention during Altarian expansion 800 years ago, when he had convinced their entire civilization to abandon aggressive policies through demonstration of overwhelming military superiority. Centauri collective leadership reviewed ancient files about the human storm who had shattered their invasion fleets in 12 standard hours 3 centuries ago. Their historical databases contained tactical analyses of battles where human forces had achieved victory ratios that defied mathematical probability. Collective strategists recommended immediate withdrawal from any operations that might be perceived as threatening to human interests. Walker's reputation spread faster than his ship could travel as reports of his exploits reached civilizations across the galaxy. Enemy commanders began refusing deployment orders rather than face the legendary human warrior, while allied species offered support to humanity in hopes of avoiding his attention. The mere mention of his name was enough to cause panic among military units that had never seen combat. Supreme Commander Vex Corvanis realized that conventional military tactics were useless against an enemy who seemed to operate according to different laws of physics. Corvan intelligence reports described impossible human victories where small fleets destroyed overwhelming enemy forces without significant losses. Their analysts concluded that Walker represented something beyond normal evolution. The Corvan hegemony began forming alliances with other aggressive species in desperate attempts to create forces large enough to overwhelm Walker's tactical abilities. Ancient enemies put aside territorial disputes to coordinate their efforts against the returning human legend. Military leaders who had never cooperated began sharing intelligence about Walker's historical interventions. Walker explained to his crew that this coordinated response was exactly what he had expected, because threatened species always tried to combine their strength when facing extinction. The ancient warrior had seen this pattern repeated across millennia and knew that overwhelming alien coalitions would eventually force him to reveal the full extent of his capabilities. Dr. Lisa Martinez joined the Infinity as scientific advisor. After her discovery on Kepler 442b provided crucial intelligence about Walker's historical interventions. She studied the ancient warrior with fascination while trying to understand how one individual could possess abilities that seemed to violate fundamental laws of physics. Her research suggested that Walker represented the next stage of human evolution. The crew of the Infinity found themselves serving with someone who had shaped galactic history for thousands of years while appearing to be just another human soldier. Walker's casual references to ancient battles and extinct civilizations reminded them that they were witnessing living history in action. His presence aboard their ship transformed the Infinity from advanced warship into legendary vessel that would be remembered for centuries. As reports arrived about massive alien fleet buildups in border regions, Walker prepared for what might be his greatest challenge yet. The emerging coalition represented unprecedented coordination among species that had never worked together before. Ancient enemies were putting aside millennia of conflict to unite against humanity's legendary protector, and Walker knew that this time the survival of his species hung in the balance. Walker gathered his senior crew in the Infinity's main briefing room 3 weeks after the Titan VII victory to reveal truths that would change their understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. Rachel Torres sat with her command staff while Dr. Lisa Martinez prepared recording equipment to document what might be the most important conversation in human history. The ancient warrior began his story by explaining that he had not always been the legend that alien civilizations feared. 3,000 years ago, he had been an ordinary human soldier named John Walker who volunteered for an experimental program during humanity's first major interstellar war. Earth faced extinction from an alliance of 3 alien species who possessed overwhelming technological superiority. Human scientists had discovered quantum manipulation technology in the ruins of an even more ancient civilization, and they desperately needed someone willing to undergo an untested transformation process. The procedure would merge human consciousness with quantum probability fields to create a warrior capable of altering the fundamental odds of victory through sheer force of will. Marcus Webb listened with growing amazement as Walker described the process that had transformed him from normal human into something that existed partially outside conventional spacetime. The quantum merger allowed him to perceive multiple possible futures and choose actions that would lead to optimal outcomes. His enhanced consciousness could influence probability itself on a massive scale. The original transformation had been so traumatic that Walker's memories of his previous life were almost completely erased. He retained only fragments of his human identity while gaining abilities that made him something between man and living force of nature. The scientists who created him realized they had unleashed something potentially dangerous and destroyed all records of the process. Amy Carter asked why Walker spent centuries in suspended animation between conflicts instead of remaining active to protect humanity continuously. The ancient warrior explained that his quantum-enhanced consciousness required periodic dormancy to prevent it from becoming completely disconnected from human experience. Constant use of his abilities would eventually transform him into something that could no longer relate to the species he was designed to protect. Walker had been programmed to activate automatically during genuine extinction level threats to human survival. His suspended animation pods monitored galactic conditions through quantum sensors that could detect patterns indicating imminent danger to his species. Each awakening coincided with moments when human civilization faced complete annihilation. Dr. Lisa Martinez studied Walker's biological readings with equipment that revealed impossible cellular structures and energy patterns that defied current scientific understanding. His DNA had been rewritten on a quantum level that allowed his body to interface directly with probability fields. The ancient warrior was technically still human but enhanced far. Beyond normal evolutionary limitations, Rachel Torres struggled to accept that her friend and commander was essentially a living weapon created by their ancestors to fight battles across the centuries. Walker sensed her emotional conflict and explained that despite his enhancements, he retained core human values including compassion and desire to protect innocent life. His quantum abilities served his humanity rather than replacing it. The crew learned that Walker's interventions throughout galactic history had shaped the development of multiple civilizations in ways that ensured long-term human survival. His legendary status served as a deterrent that prevented many conflicts from developing, while his actual appearances were reserved for genuine existential threats. This time, however, the situation was different from previous conflicts because the threats facing humanity were more numerous and coordinated than ever before. The Corvan hegemony had successfully formed alliances with 7 other aggressive species, creating the largest anti-human coalition in galactic history. Their combined fleets included over 15,000 warships, equipped with weapons that could sterilize entire star systems. Walker admitted that his abilities had limitations and that coordinated attacks by such massive forces might overwhelm even his quantum-enhanced tactical capabilities. The ancient warrior faced the possibility that this awakening would be his last, because either humanity would achieve permanent galactic security or both he and his species would perish together. The revelation created tension among the crew as they realized the enormous responsibility they carried as Walker's primary support team. Marcus Webb worried that the Infinity systems might not be adequate for the scale of conflict that was approaching, while Amy Carter began developing new tactical protocols based on Walker's enhanced capabilities. Intelligence reports confirmed that alien coalition forces were massing in multiple staging areas throughout the Outer Rim territories. Supreme Commander Vex Corvanis had convinced traditional enemies to coordinate their efforts by sharing historical records about Walker's previous interventions. Fear of the legendary human warrior had created unity among species that had been fighting each other for centuries. Walker explained that the quantum transformation process had been irreversible and that each use of his abilities caused progressive changes to his cellular structure. He was slowly becoming something beyond human comprehension, and this final conflict would determine whether that transformation served its intended purpose of ensuring species survival. Dr. Lisa Martinez discovered that Walker's quantum abilities were already affecting the Infinity's crew in subtle ways that enhanced their coordination and tactical thinking. His presence aboard the ship created probability fields that improved their chances of survival during combat operations. The ancient warrior was unconsciously sharing fragments of his enhanced capabilities with those around him. The weight of Walker's story settled heavily on the crew as they realized they were serving with someone who had sacrificed his normal human existence to become humanity's eternal guardian. His lonely vigil across the centuries represented the ultimate expression of duty and sacrifice for species survival. Rachel Torres asked Walker what would happen to him after the current conflict ended, and whether he would return to suspended animation for another 1,000 years. The ancient warrior's expression suggested that he did not expect to survive the coming battles because the quantum transformation was approaching critical levels that would fundamentally alter his existence. Walker began preparing the crew for what he believed would be his final mission by sharing tactical knowledge and quantum manipulation techniques that might allow them to continue his work if necessary. The ancient warrior was training his replacements while hoping that such measures would prove unnecessary. As reports arrived about alien fleet movements toward human space, Walker entered a period of deep meditation that allowed him to extend his consciousness across vast distances. His quantum abilities began revealing possible futures where humanity either achieved lasting peace or faced complete extinction. The outcome depended on choices that had not yet been made and battles that would determine the fate of human civilization. The crew of the Infinity found themselves serving as witnesses to the final chapter of a legend that had protected their species for millennia. Walker's story transformed their understanding of human potential, while placing them at the center of events that would reshape galactic civilization. They were no longer just crew members aboard an advanced warship, but guardians of humanity's greatest secret and possibly its last hope for survival. The combined alien armada emerged from hyperspace above Earth like a dark storm that blotted out the stars with 15,000 warships, representing 8 different species united in their determination to eliminate humanity once and for all. Supreme Commander Vex Corvanis led the coalition from his flagship while coordinating the largest military operation in galactic history. General Patricia Hayes watched the tactical displays from Earth Defense Command with grim determination as sensors revealed the true scale of the threat facing her world. Human forces numbered less than 800 ships scattered across multiple defensive positions that seemed pathetically inadequate against such overwhelming numbers. Admiral Kevin Cross coordinated evacuation efforts while preparing for what appeared to be humanity's final battle. Walker stood on the bridge of the Infinity as the ancient vessel led Earth's defense fleet toward the approaching enemy armada. His quantum abilities allowed him to perceive the battle from multiple dimensional perspectives, while his enhanced consciousness began extending across space to touch every human ship simultaneously. The crew watched their captain undergo a transformation that made reality itself seem to bend around his presence. Rachel Torres felt the change immediately as Walker's influence spread through the Infinity systems and connected with every human vessel in the fleet. Ship communications merged into a single unified network that allowed perfect coordination between widely separated forces. Navigation computers achieved impossible accuracy while weapon systems targeted enemy vessels with supernatural precision. Marcus Webb monitored engineering displays that showed power readings climbing far beyond safe operational limits as Walker's quantum field interactions supercharged every system aboard the human fleet. The ancient warrior was pushing technology beyond its design specifications through sheer force of will while somehow preventing catastrophic failures that should have destroyed every ship involved. The first exchange of fire between the two fleets defied everything Admiral Kevin Cross thought he knew about space warfare. Human weapons struck their targets with perfect accuracy while alien return fire seemed to miss by impossible margins or suffer system failures at critical moments. The tactical situation evolved so rapidly that conventional military analysis became meaningless. Amy Carter documented battle patterns that would have been dismissed as fantasy if she had not witnessed them personally. Human ships moved in perfect synchronization while executing maneuvers that violated basic physics, yet somehow achieved devastating tactical advantages. Walker was coordinating hundreds of vessels as if they were extensions of his own consciousness. Supreme Commander Vex Corvanis watched his carefully planned assault dissolve into chaos as human forces achieved coordination that seemed telepathic while his own fleet fell into increasing confusion. Weapons that should have obliterated Earth's defenders had no effect while human counterattacks crippled alien vessels with single shots that found critical system weaknesses with impossible accuracy. Walker's transformation intensified as the battle reached its climax and his physical form began to flicker between solid matter and pure energy. The ancient warrior was merging completely with the quantum field that had enhanced his abilities for thousands of years. His consciousness expanded beyond individual awareness to encompass the entire battlespace. Dr. Lisa Martinez recorded readings that showed Walker's cellular structure breaking down at the molecular level as he channeled more quantum energy than any living being should be able to survive. The ancient warrior was sacrificing his physical existence to achieve perfect coordination of human forces while manipulating probability fields on a scale that affected the fundamental nature of reality itself. The alien armada began breaking apart as species that had maintained careful alliance suddenly found themselves unable to coordinate their efforts. Communication systems failed at critical moments while weapons experienced inexplicable malfunctions that left entire fleets defenseless. Ancient enemies reverted to traditional hostilities as the coalition dissolved, under pressures that seemed to come from the universe itself. Corvan Admiral Vex Corvan reported impossible losses as his battle group encountered human resistance that defied all tactical doctrine. Every advantage his forces possessed seemed to turn against them, while human ships appeared to anticipate his every move. The legendary Walker was demonstrating why entire civilizations had learned to fear his name. Walker's consciousness began dispersing into the quantum field surrounding Earth as his physical transformation reached irreversible levels. His voice echoed through every human ship simultaneously, as he coordinated the final phase of the battle with tactical genius that belonged more to myth than reality. The ancient warrior was becoming something greater than individual existence. The breaking point came when 3 Corvan battleships attempted to ram Earth's orbital defense platforms in desperate suicide attacks. Walker's influence caused their navigation systems to fail at the last moment, while human defenders achieved impossible accuracy that destroyed the attacking vessels without damaging the stations they were trying to protect. Rachel Torres watched Walker's physical form fade into translucent energy as the ancient warrior completed his final transformation. His consciousness had merged completely with the quantum field that connected all human technology and would continue protecting his species for all time. The legendary protector had become an eternal guardian whose presence would ensure no force in the galaxy could ever threaten human survival. The alien coalition began full retreat as reports spread through their fleets about the impossible defeat they were suffering. Species that had maintained military superiority for millennia found themselves helpless against human forces that seemed to control the fundamental laws of physics. Ancient pride meant nothing when faced with an enemy that could rewrite reality itself. Supreme Commander Vex Corvanis ordered immediate withdrawal of all Corvan forces after losing over 60% of his fleet in 8 hours of combat. The historical records that had warned about Walker's capabilities proved inadequate for describing the reality of facing humanity's legendary protector. The Corvan hegemony would never again threaten human space. Marcus Webb detected quantum signatures throughout human space that indicated Walker's consciousness had dispersed into a protective field surrounding every human world. The ancient warriors' sacrifice had created permanent defenses that would guard his species against future threats. Earth and all human colonies now existed under the protection of their transformed guardian. The battle's aftermath established a new galactic order, where humanity took its place as a major power protected by forces that other species could not understand or challenge. Alien civilizations spoke Walker's name with mixtures of fear and respect, while acknowledging that humans had achieved something beyond their comprehension. Dr. Lisa Martinez's final report documented the transformation of one individual into an eternal force that would protect humanity for countless generations. Walker had achieved the ultimate sacrifice by abandoning his physical existence to become a living manifestation of his species' survival instinct. Future human generations would live under the watchful presence of their ancient guardian, Amy. Carter concluded her tactical analysis by noting that conventional military doctrine would need complete revision to account for the reality that humanity now possessed defensive capabilities that transcended normal physics. Earth's defense forces had access to coordination and tactical advantages that made them effectively invincible against any conceivable threat. The galaxy entered a new era, where aggressive expansion toward human space became unthinkable because every alien civilization understood that Walker still protected his people from beyond physical death. The ancient human they had feared for millennia had become something greater than legend by transforming into an eternal sentinel, whose presence among the stars would guard humanity forever. Rachel Torres stood alone on the Infinity's bridge looking out at the stars, where Walker's consciousness now dwelled as an invisible guardian watching over his species. The legendary warrior had achieved immortality not through extending his life, but by sacrificing his individual existence to become humanity's permanent protector. His story would inspire future generations, while his presence would ensure they remained free to write their own destiny among the stars.